What's up, my wizards? It's Dev. Mtg, we like it at Magic, and today I figured I'd take a little break from rearranging my office and setting up the computer for streaming and all that good stuff to bang out a quick little predictions video for the next WWE pay-per-view. Last time I did one of these, a surprising number of people were into it, so I figured I'd try it again because it's pretty quick to do these videos. It's really fun for me to kind of refresh myself and talk about something else for like 10-20 minutes, right? So I'm going to try and do this again for Extreme Rules, the horror show, which is what they're calling Extreme Rules this year because they needed something like cringy to tack onto it. But yeah, just a couple of quick things before I get started here today. One, if you didn't notice me drop the bomb a second ago and you haven't already heard from Twitter or Patreon, yeah, we're going to be doing streaming fairly soon. My wife just built this super dope computer with all the amazing specs. Check them out on Twitter. That's my Twitter right there. If you wanted to care, if you care about the specs at all. My wife is very good at building computers. Much better, in fact, than I am. So we ordered all the parts and she built this thing. And it is... needless to say, once you see the specs, it is ready to stream, so we're going to be doing that really soon. And second of all, when it comes to WWE videos, I just want to address something I got in the comments section last time. Now, I don't believe wrestling is real, guys. No one in the world thinks wrestling is real. We watch it because it's entertainment. I don't know if you knew this, but every single thing that you watch on TV, almost every single thing, includes scripted scenarios and actors playing characters. Just about every television show you've ever seen or movie you've ever watched includes a scripted character drama, which is exactly what wrestling is. No one, literally no one, I want you to absorb that. No one thinks wrestling is real. If I did think wrestling was real, I would not be doing a predictions video in the same way that I'm doing these predictions videos. You'll know what I mean once I get into actually talking about each match. I make it fairly obvious that I know that it's scripted, so... yeah, just so you know, literally not a single wrestling fan in the entire world thinks that this is real. I just want to let you know that. But anyway, let's get into the predictions here for a show that I'm not actually super excited about. I'm really not. This is just kind of a stepping stone. That's the term I'm looking for. Just a stepping stone to SummerSlam. Honestly, there's not too much incredible stuff going on in this show, although I do think there are some matches that could steal tonight. But let's kind of start with the things that, well, yeah, that's how I want to do it. I was going to say, we'll start with the things I'm least excited about and work our way up. But instead, I think I'm just going to go in the order of what the match card might be. I guess we'll try to predict that too. But all in all, it's going to be probably close to the same thing. Now, there are 7 matches listed on the official card right now, but that doesn't include the match that I would be least excited about. But I feel like they've announced this match on SmackDown last week, the Jeff Hardy Sheamus barroom brawl thing, the bar fight. This match, I don't know how I feel about it, like, ethically, right? I have the same problem a lot of people have with this Jeff Hardy Sheamus storyline where, like, okay, so Jeff Hardy is a real-life recovering alcoholic, recovering addict, and you're going to make the storyline all about that and how you're going to, like, tempt him with drinks and stuff. It's just kind of gross, honestly. But, you know, that's WWE. That's what they do with their storyline sometimes, so I can't say I'm super surprised. But this one is it hits a little close to home, and it's slightly, like, classless. But again, WWE, you can't really complain about classlessness with them. But I really hope that Jeff Hardy, if they're even doing this, you know, once they announced they were going to do a bar fight, there were a lot of people online that were like, ew, gross. It's just really taking it too far. So they may have just scrubbed it from the card. They may. It's not on the official card right now, but they announced it at one point in time, so I at least want to cover it. I really hope that if this happens, Jeff Hardy just wins, and that's the end of this. Like I want him to win so that he has like that final decisive victory over Sheamus that he hasn't really had yet, and we can move on to like something else, right? Like Jeff Hardy. I got a lot of people last time in the comment section saying like, oh, I didn't recognize any of these wrestlers. Like, you don't recognize Jeff Hardy? Come on. Jeff Hardy is still wrestling. So if you're watching wrestling 20 years ago when it was popular, you probably remember the Hardy Boys, right? So, like, Jeff Hardy is one of the most recognizable wrestlers on this card, period, even for old-timers or people that haven't watched in 20 years. And I think having to, like, see him go through this is probably not great for a lot of people that, like, give a crap about Jeff Hardy. I do. I care about Jeff Hardy. I just, you know, there's got to be a million better things you could have him be doing than this right now. He could be in the Intercontinental title picture. He could be in the U.S. title picture. You know, he could be part of the Monday Night Messiah thing with Seth Rollins, right? He'd be fighting against or with Seth Rollins. It doesn't matter. There's just like other stuff you could be doing than this like weird recovering addict storyline. Like, at first I kind of like what they were doing with it, but like they've taken it way too far at this point. It's just, it really needs to end. Jeff Hardy to win this match if they do it. But moving on, like what would be the match that would probably go on like either first in the night or like, you know, second? Because I'm thinking that Barroom Brawl thing is probably going to be on the actual card if they do it, and it won't be part of the pre-show. But that said, I think there are at least 2 fights that could be part of the pre-show here. And the first one is the tables match for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. You got the New Day, which in this case would be Big E and Kofi, of course, because Xavier's been injured forever at this point, versus Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura. If you're one of those people that hasn't watched wrestling in 20 years, you just like these prediction videos because you watch my content, check out Shinsuke Nakamura. I really, really like Shinsuke a lot. He's been catching some flack lately because he's not like the best worker at this stage in his career, I guess is how some people are putting it. But I think that's just because, like, the dude, first of all, he's not working for New Japan anymore. He's not in, like, the championship picture. He's not, like, a big fish in a relatively big pond. Like, at this point, he's just a medium-sized fish in, like, the biggest pond in the world. And they're not doing much with him, so I just feel like he's probably unmotivated to do much at this point. But that said, he has been doing much better work over the last few weeks. But I think it might be because they're going to put the straps on in this case, which is why we're seeing them sort of, you know, bring Shinsuke and Cesaro out a little bit more often. They might be doing that for the smart marks, because a lot of internet wrestling watchers really like both Shinsuke and Cesaro. You know, they're both, at one point at least, decent workers in the company. Cesaro especially is like a 5-tool superstar. He can do pretty much everything, and he's got a good look, right? So there's been a lot of people complaining now that Shinsuke hasn't been, you know, used to his full potential since they brought him over to the main roster. And Cesaro, they've just always overlooked. But, you know, Cesaro's former, you know, 6-time, I think, tag team champion. So, right. I think he was a U.S. champion at one point, too. So, like, Cesaro may be past his prime at this point. I think Shinsuke is, too, in some ways, right? I think that the dude did everything he could in New Japan, did everything he could in NXT, right? But at the end of the day, maybe he just moved to Orlando to surf. Right, and just live out the rest of his career, make a ton of money, and then go back to Japan and live a good life. So, you know, I don't necessarily fault Shinsuke in some ways for not being the best worker over the last year, because again, there hasn't been much to do with him. But maybe they put the belts on him. I don't think that the New Day or Kofi, you know, Kofi and Big E, lose much from losing the belts here. They've had the belts for a good while. It's their 8th reign with the straps, so. You know, again, they could shed those belts and then pick them back up again later. Like maybe eventually they're going to be the 10-time tag team champions, but they have to lose the belts before that happens. And I think that if you want to give Cesaro and Shinsuke a push, and again renew their vigor, especially a guy like Shinsuke who just you could do so much more with, you just have to do something. And I think that putting a belt on him will really increase his credibility for the time being. So I'd really like it, even though I love the New Day. I really love the New Day. As a matter of fact, Big E is my wife's favorite wrestler, like, period. She loves Big E. That's her second husband, right? That's what she tells me. But in any case, and I love Big E too. He's just the happiest person I've ever seen. How do you not love Big E, or Kofi for that matter? I just really like both of these teams, and I could actually see either one of them winning here. But I do kind of hope, at the end of the day, that they put him on Cesaro and Shinsuke, and then maybe keep this rivalry going, right? Because you need something to do with these SmackDown Tag Team Championships, because really, you're not doing much with either of your tag team divisions right now. So I like the idea of, you know, a strong team like Cesaro and Shinsuke proving themselves, and then maybe hot potatoing these belts back and forth. Up until, you know, either Survivor Series, or maybe you have another match at SummerSlam, and the New Day takes the belts back or something. But either way, I do think this rivalry could continue, because it's really only been going on for like 2 weeks now. So I think you probably want to just prolong this rivalry till SummerSlam, and I think the best way to do that is to move the straps in this match. So I'm going to pick Shinsuke and Cesaro on this one. But anyway, I've talked a long time about that one. The other one that I think could be on the pre-show is the United States champion. This one, Apollo Crews versus MVP. Really like Apollo Crews. I like him a lot. Another like multi-tool athlete for the company that I think that they're just not really utilizing the way they can. Maybe he's not the best talker in the world, although I think that he's actually gotten a lot better at that, especially over the course of the U.S. title run. Now I want to see Apollo with a mic, whereas I used to be like, oh boy, Apollo's got a mic. So, like, you know, I think that Apollo's done a lot better now, especially in terms of promo skill. But he just does everything. In terms of athleticism, he's really strong, he's quick, he's agile. He's just like a pure athlete with like ridiculous size at the same time. And that's you know, a very special performer whenever you actually come across someone like that. So I like Apollo. I just wanted to qualify all this with that. But I think maybe this is the time to have, you know, MVP have like one more good run with a belt. He's really done so much lately. And I know that Raw and SmackDown have had like terrible ratings lately, but I think that's mostly because of no crowds and COVID and all that huge, you know, effects on WWE's ratings. Not to mention some of Vince's decisions during this time period, I think, have dropped off some of the viewership. Plus, you got AEW cutting into the pie too. So, you know, not on Mondays and Fridays, but either way, you've got a lot of different reasons for the drop in ratings lately. And I don't think MVP is one of them. I think that of the, you know, good things about the shows lately, MVP's been right up there in the sort of upper echelon. You know, it's not like I think he's the best promo in the world, but I didn't think he holds together a lot of the, you know, different storylines in the company right now, both with the Bobby Lashley stuff and the U.S. title stuff with Apollo Crews. He's kind of a mouthpiece for both people, right? Both his opponent, Apollo Crews, and his client, Bobby Lashley. Plus, you know, MVP will go around backstage and talk to other people like, yo, you need to be my client and all that. I've just really kind of enjoyed all the different stuff they're doing with Montavious Porter lately. So I kind of think that you could reward him for being a company man and for, you know, doing so much in these storylines lately by putting a strap on him, giving him that new United States Championship that he came out with the other night, which does look better than the current belt. Right, there are technically 2 U.S. titles right now, but I think the one that he sort of unveiled last week looks really, really good, and you want that belt to be the U.S. title belt. Not to say that Apollo Crews can't win and take that strap, that version of the belt, but I think it would just make a lot more sense if MVP somehow won this one, probably through some sort of heelish chicanery, and then, you know, took the belt, his version of the belt, and then, you know, whoever wins the belt from that point on has that version of the belt. But again, I think that there's a lot of reasons I'm picking MVP here. I think that he's probably just about done in the company. But one more run with the belt would probably just be really, you know, honorable to him. So, because he's always been a great, you know, athlete and talker. He just, you know, he's got a lot going for him. It'd be nice to give him one more run with the belt, even if it's relatively short-lived. Maybe you just have Apollo take it right back off of him at SummerSlam, or like Ricochet or something like that. You know, maybe as a conduit to getting the belt on somebody else. MVP would be a good heel to put that belt on in the meantime. So I kind of like that idea. But moving on here, we get a drastic uptick in how much I care about the matches. This doesn't mean I'm going to talk all day about them, but I kind of have already been talking all day. But I guess the next one on the card, they'd probably do a women's match, because I haven't done a women's match yet. There are only 2 on the card, and they're probably the 2 matches I'm most interested in. But let's talk about Bayley-Nikki Cross for the SmackDown Women's Championship first. Now, this one I'm a lot less interested in than the other women's match, because I think that the outcome here is more or less determined already. I would be shocked if they put this belt on Nikki. I would like them to, but that's just not the way the build is going right now. The way the momentum is trending. It sure looks like they're probably, I really hope they do it at SummerSlam, but it might even be like as late as Survivor Series. But I really hope they pull the trigger on Bayley versus Sasha Banks by the time SummerSlam rolls around. I think that would be great. And if they do that, I think you absolutely have to have the belt on Bayley, the SmackDown Women's Championship. So I think this is a lot like the WWE Championship match on this card, in that it's kind of just a placeholder. You know, you give Bayley something to do, and you give Nikki a chance to shine, because Nikki is a very good wrestler, a very good character. She's been doing wonderful character work lately. So I think this is a great way to, put Nikki in the spotlight, but I don't think you're going to give Nikki a belt here. I really don't. I'd say just to keep, the storylines in place and keep everything going the way it's been going, and the build that's so obvious, keep building the way we want it to. Bayley's got to keep this belt here. So I don't really have much to say about this match other than Bayley wins, but I am glad that Nikki gets a little chance to shine here. So there's that. I think Nikki could be a great women's championship or champion one day. But we're going to have to get through all of this, Bayley, Sasha Banks, and Asuka, too, stuff. Charlotte's probably going to have to come back, although Nikki could be a great interim champion before Charlotte comes back. So I'm keeping that in mind too. But I'm just this one is almost like one of the most shoe-in answers of the night to me. Bayley wins this match. But moving on here, I guess we'll talk about the eye for an eye match. So ridiculous. Between Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio. This one's got a lot of business talk, I guess, that goes into a lot of dirt sheet talk that goes into it. Because the talk about town is that Rey Mysterio has actually been working uncontracted for a while now. His contract ran out months ago, and he's been basically, I think since the beginning of the year, he's been working off contract. So this might be a great way to write Rey Mysterio off. And if you don't know, again, if you just watch these for me because you watch my content, you probably don't know that an eye for an eye match is what it sounds like. The winner can only be determined when someone has their eye pulled out of its socket. Yeah, that's crazy. On a PG show, that's crazy. But yeah, somebody's going to, in CGI, I'm sure. And I think WWE has already confirmed that this will be a CGI thing. But in CGI, somebody's going to get their freaking eye pulled out, which is nuts. That's so nuts. But they're going to do it. And I really doubt they're going to make Seth Rollins walk around with an eye patch for the rest of his career. So it's probably going to be Rey Mysterio. And then maybe after that, Dominic, Rey Mysterio's son, will start feuding with Seth Rollins for real. And you can start actually having him wrestle matches and stuff. That'd be nice. But I do think that I'm going to go with that speculation that most other people are making, that this is probably going to be Rey Mysterio's last match, at least for a while. But obviously Rey is one of the older people on the card. He's another one that people who remember wrestling in the 90s and early 2000s probably remember Rey Mysterio Jr., right? So he's getting along in years at this point, and this will probably be his last match for WWE, at least. So, I want them to send off Rey in a really nice way, but I don't think that he's going to be sent off by winning this match. I think it's going to be Rollins. We're going to continue the Monday Night Messiah stuff, which I actually like. A lot of people do. I think that Rollins is much, much better as a heel than he is as a face. Good guy Seth Rollins is just, I don't buy him. I don't like him. But since they've been doing the Monday Night Messiah stuff, I've really liked the work, the character work, the promo work that Seth has been putting in. I like this character a lot. So, I like him. I'm not saying I really want Seth Rollins to win. I think I'd actually rather Rey Mysterio win, but it ain't going to happen. I very highly doubt that's going to happen. So, moving on to the Wyatt Swamp fight. Bray Wyatt, Swamp cult leader, Cape Fear, Bray Wyatt, older Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman. So, not Bray Wyatt from the children's show, not Mr. Rogers, don't hug me, I'm scared, Bray Wyatt. And not The Fiend, but Bray Wyatt, the character from a few years ago with the Fireflies and the Swamp House, all that stuff. That's what we're doing, and we're doing it in the swamp. So it's going to be a cinematic match of some kind, probably like the Boneyard match. And in defense of cinematic matches, I like having one or two of these on a card. And I'd really like to know, if you put enough money into it, if you could do a whole wrestling, federation like this, with these kind of cinematic matches, and you could do this guy knows how to do a fireball or whatever, Kamehameha or something like that, or this guy can sort of fly or whatever. If you just had it's wrestling but with superpowers, and you could do that through the use of cinematic shots and CGI and stuff like that. I think that'd actually be really interesting if someone were willing to dump the definitely necessary money into a project like that. If you just do a whole new wrestling federation with stuff like that, I think it'd be really interesting to see how well that would do. And you could really push the limit with stuff. But anyway, I'm getting off, really off topic here. What's up with this swamp fight? Well, I think that we're probably going to do... There's two schools of thought on this. We either do 50-50 booking, where Braun Strowman won their last match, so Bray Wyatt wins this match, and then they have a fight where it's Braun Strowman versus The Fiend for the tiebreaker, basically, probably at SummerSlam. And for the championship. Note, this is not for the championship. Braun Strowman is the Universal or the Blue Universal champion right now. But this does not appear to be for the belt. So just a fight in the swamp. So for that reason, too, I think that it's entirely possible you give Bray Wyatt the win here because it's consequence-free, right? You don't have to put the belt on him if Bray Wyatt wins. And you probably would rather put the belt on The Fiend if you're going to switch the belt, right? So I think that I'm probably leaning toward Wyatt wins this one, and then you have more of a reason to continue the feud. right? But that isn't to say the other school of thought is that Braun Strowman wins this one, and so Bray Wyatt like has to be the Fiend, right? Like you beat the lowest power level incarnation of him when you beat the Mr. Robbins guy, the Mr. Robbins Bray Wyatt, and then you beat sort of the mid-level second form, not quite perfect cell version of him when you beat Swamp Man. So he whips out the Frieza final form of the Fiend for the final fight and beats Braun Strowman. I think that's another school of thought on it. But it's really hard to say which one I want to go with. But just because this isn't for the championship, and so it's much safer to have Bray Wyatt win this fight, I'll go with the 50-50 booking angle and say that Bray Wyatt will probably end up winning this fight. So there's that. But we have 2 more matches to talk about. Let's talk about the WWE Championship, Drew McIntyre versus Dolph Ziggler. This is the match I have the least to say about. Drew's winning this one. It'll be the shock of the year if Dolph Ziggler wins this strap. It will just be unbelievable. All the kudos to WWE if you have the balls to do this. But I really don't think that they do. And I don't think they want to. I just don't see why you'd want to, right? Drew McIntyre is a really good champion. Again, promo work has been great lately. He's just, I really like Drew McIntyre as champion. And I think this would be a really silly, random, awkward time for him to drop this belt, especially to someone like Ziggler. And Ziggler's great. He's a good worker. He always has been. For a long time, Dolph Ziggler was known as like the next Shawn Michaels, right? Puts in great work. But I don't see them pulling the trigger on Dolph Ziggler at this point. You want to keep Drew as a champion. He's been booked very, very strong, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. But I don't know who he's going to fight at like SummerSlam, right? Like, they put him against Lashley at the last pay-per-view. They're putting him against Dolph at this one. Like, who's the big bad guy that like really poses a threat to Drew McIntyre? I don't know. So, I'm not really sure what they do after this, but I highly doubt they'll continue this Drew McIntyre-Dolph Ziggler feud. We still don't know what the stip is for this match because Dolph Ziggler gets to pick the stipulation, and he won't reveal it until that night. But if I had to guess, it's probably... I really hope they don't go the easy route and just say, it's Extreme Rules, right? Like, no disqualifications, because that'd be dumb. Maybe it's going to be like... the Claymore is banned. You can't use the Claymore, so like Drew doesn't get his finisher. But who knows? It's all speculation at this point. But it doesn't really matter what the stip is because Drew's going to win this one. So let's move on to what may be the final match of the night if they're smart, and definitely the one that I'm the most excited about. And that is Asuka versus Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's Champion. Asuka, I have a lot to say about. Asuka is my favorite star in the company by a fairly large margin at this point. I just love Asuka. I haven't loved her reign though. Her run with the belt this time around. She hasn't been booked very well. She lost to Charlotte like 2 times in a row. She hasn't been booked super strong. Her moveset has also shrank, it seems, over the last maybe 2 months here. She uses hip attack like a lot, like 3 times a match. And I don't know, like Asuka has a very, wide, versatile moveset. So I don't know what's been going on with that, but just all in all, her booking hasn't been intensely strong. And that leads me to believe, and a whole bunch of other reasons, storyline reasons, that she might drop this belt. And there's 2 schools of thought on this one too. The idea is that Kairi Sane is a factor here. Because Kairi Sane, obviously, Asuka's tag team partner, she just came back like 2 weeks ago when the speculation was that she was done with WWE, her contract's over, she's going back to Japan. But like that same week she came back. So you never know. But she might just be, doing a few shows until, she gets injured, quote unquote, in kayfabe. They can write her off. And she goes back to Japan, lives out the rest of her life, whatever. And maybe, Bayley or Sasha causes that injury and that makes Asuka upset, gives her more of a reason to continue this storyline. Something like that, right? But the big, I guess, school of thought with a lot of people here is that it's very likely if Kairi Sane does have like one more big match in WWE before she leaves, it's probably going to be against Asuka. And the idea is that you have Kairi Sane versus Asuka at SummerSlam. And a lot of people are saying for the championship, for the Raw Women's Championship. I don't know about that. I don't think that Asuka has to have the belt to make that a special match, right? Like you could do Asuka versus Kairi Sane at SummerSlam just by itself, that's a fairly compelling match that you know is going to be like a good, entertaining match too. So, just with the chemistry they have together, it's going to be like a 4.5-star match, no matter, even if the belt's not on the line. And I don't think a belt has to be on the line to compel that storyline. That said, you could keep the belt on Asuka here and make that a championship match. You could do that. But what I think I'd rather see is, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, because again, Asuka's my favorite superstar in the company by a lot. But I think I'd rather them go ahead, pull the trigger, take that belt off Asuka, slap it on Sasha. And that way, at SummerSlam, you have a match between, Sasha and Bayley. Another friends turn into foes match. A match between Sasha and Bayley. For, the winner has 2 belts, basically. Bayley has the SmackDown Women's Championship. At that point, Sasha will have the Raw Women's Championship. So you get a belt versus belt match. And, I just think that'd be the most special way to finish the build-up that we all know is happening. At some point, Sasha and Bayley are going to effectively beat everyone, except for one another. And so, I don't know if we have time for that before SummerSlam to get that build, but it feels like we've been building to it for like 6-8 months, more than that, really. If you look at like the history of Sasha and Bayley, we've been building to it for literally years. So, I think that if you do want to finish that build, then both women need to have belts. That makes sense to me, that when you actually have them finally come head-to-head against one another, that there's huge stakes, and they both have belts, right? So I think that, just for storyline purposes, I think that Sasha could win this match. Seriously, especially the way they've been building Sasha lately. And it might be because of some chicanery, right? Like Bayley does something, Sasha ends up winning, and then Bayley can say, oh, you wouldn't have won that belt without me. Or Sasha can say, oh, you wouldn't have won your belt without me, right? And so you could really, create a lot of dissension in terms of writing these storylines. If they both have these belts, if they have all, because they also both have, they're the women's tag team championships right now. Bayley and Sasha are. So if Bayley keeps her title and Sasha wins the belt, they have all of the women's gold, basically. And I actually think that'd be a great way to not only keep, establishing how dominant they've been as a pair lately, but also create dissension, because they could both have belts, right? Bayley's got the Raw Women's Championship. Bayley's got the SmackDown. Sasha's got the Raw Women's Championship. But they lose the belts to, say, the Kabuki Warriors or the Iconics or something like that. Put the belts back on the Iconics. Or maybe put them on Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss. You've actually got a pretty good tag team division in your women's division right now. So put the belts on someone else. And that can start the dissension, right? Like maybe something Bayley does makes them lose the belts to another team. And Sasha has something to fuss at her about. And, you started going, right? So, but again, I think that for that match to ultimately have the highest stakes, they both have to have singles gold. So, honestly, as much as I love Asuka and as much as I've loved this reign, I don't think it has to be her last title reign. I really don't. Maybe you play out this Sasha and Bayley thing, and then Asuka can come back into the picture and sweep up one of those belts once that's all over. So, there's a lot of ways you could go with this, but if you're going to get this Bayley-Sasha thing going, I'd really like you to do it before Survivor Series, because that's months away. But you might have live crowds by Survivor Series. You very likely shouldn't, but I think that they're trying to have live crowds before Survivor Series. But they've already said SummerSlam, I think SummerSlam is not going to have live crowds for sure, and that's good. It shouldn't have live crowds. But that makes me think maybe they won't do all this crazy stuff. Maybe they won't finish off the Bayley versus Sasha storyline where they finally turn on each other by SummerSlam, because they're not going to have live crowds. There's a lot of these storylines I think they'd much rather have live crowds for. But I don't think that's going to happen until hopefully sometime, next year, if they're trying to play it as safely as possible. But WWE has made clear that they're not trying to play it as safely as possible, so we'll see what happens with that. But again, I think that Sasha probably wins this match. But if she doesn't, I guess I can't be mad either. But I guess that's it for this one. My predictions, I think I was about half and half last time. And if I'm half and half this time, I guess I'll be happy. But I think this is a much easier show to predict than Backlash was. But the next one is going to be the big one. SummerSlam is one of the biggest shows of the year. So hopefully that one will be not only have more exciting matches, but also be a little bit harder to call. Because I think a lot of these are placeholder matches that are relatively easy. But either way, I hope you enjoyed me rambling about wrestling. I like doing that once a month. Give me once a month. Can I have once a month, everybody, to ramble about wrestling and kind of tell you where I am on all these storylines and stuff. But I will be streaming soon, and don't worry, if you want Magic content, you'll be getting that very soon. The ultimate Magic content, standard tier list, is going to be coming out next, like literally tomorrow. So get ready for that. You know, just because this wasn't Magic content doesn't mean you're not getting it. You'll be getting the Magic content everyone appears to want. Everyone likes this tier list. But yeah, that's coming out tomorrow. So don't worry, I'm not going to leave you hanging. You'll get MTG content. But of course, if you stopped on this video and clicked it because you like wrestling content, you have no idea what I'm talking about. So I'm just glad that you're here, brother or sister. But anyway, I guess I'm done for now. So do all the YouTube stuff. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications. You know, the spiel. Do all that stuff. Follow me on Twitter at SBMTGDev or join the Patreon. $1 a month to vote on content at patreon.com/SBMTG. Aside from that, I'm done. So, yeah. Bye.